and get up, go to the restroom, get food, do whatever you need to do. You're not going to distract me at all. So, like Mark said, I'm a lawyer, and I kind of happened into this pipeline work 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I didn't really know anything about pipelines. I didn't know anything about tar sands. I didn't know anything about any of this. Maybe like some of you. You might, sitting here today, know more than I did then. But being in Nebraska, we have a lot of farm and ranch and rural clients. And a client of mine called up and said that this outfit named TransCanada had pulled into the yard and bullied his 86-year-old mother and said, "You signed this easement for this pipeline we're going to put through. You're the only one that hasn't signed it, and if you don't sign it, we're just going to take it from you and not give you any money." Now this 86-year-old widow was upset, distraught, called her son. We worked for the son before he called me. He said, "Who is this TransCanada, and how can a Canadian company come to our state and say they're just going to take our property that's been in my family for 120 years?" I had no idea. We started researching it, and 10 years later, here we are, and the pipeline that they wanted to put in 10 years ago still isn't in the ground. And so I want to be clear that for those of you that are concerned, with property owners, we don't want this, what can we do about it? There is no silver bullet, magic bullet. I'm not coming here to tell you these things are easy to stop or that it can even necessarily be done, but I'm saying that it will absolutely happen if you do nothing. And so if your land's important to you, clean water and some minor things like that are important to you, then you got to stand up for yourselves and do something. And what I want to talk a little bit about is what Mark talked about, organizing, being more powerful than you are individually all together. So just a little bit more about me so you kind of get a background and myself and my firm. Most of the work of what we do is suing the government and or large corporations. So the pipeline is just some of the work that we do. We are suing the opioid manufacturers. You've heard about that, Monsanto and Roundup and causing cancer, people that have used that. Nelnet for college and student loans, unfair business practices, and so on. And so what's the common thread? You might be thinking, well, now hold on a second. How does he have time to do anything on pipelines? The common thread are power versus powerlessness, people that are just individuals that are getting taken advantage of by giant corporations that, guess what, have more lobbyists than the zero lobbyists you have fighting for you, getting laws passed that work for you. And it's also organizing groups of people like this to join together to be more powerful than they are. I've done hundreds of meetings just like this all across the country on these topics. Seeing the same kind of faces, the same kind of what can we really do. I'm super skeptical. And guess what? You can do a lot. And the whole point of this meeting is that you leave here more informed. Not that you agree with what I say, not if you think this is a great idea, but that you leave here more informed and you at least do something. You at least tell one person something you learned here so that they don't get taken advantage of, even if you don't want to stand up for yourself or do something about it. So the pipeline work, we were the architects, my partner and I, of the entire legal strategy, the organization strategy, and everything from A to Z for the last 10 years in Nebraska. And that has included 3 constitutional challenges where we challenged what we believed were unconstitutional laws in Nebraska and took them up to our Supreme Court. We handled the Public Service Commission trial, which was televised. We called over 50 witnesses. There was about 100,000 pages of exhibits in that trial where we represented our landowner clients fighting this pipeline and why the route that they had chosen, the pipeline company, was unintelligent. We've had 130 pipeline condemnation actions. 70 of those were just filed a month ago against all my clients. There's been over 200 appeals, and we've consulted with national folks and local folks over laws and what can be done on this process. So I've pretty much seen everything you can imagine from A to Z on this and heard stories that most of you likely have. And one of the most important things in all of this that we've done is created an organization called NEAT, the Nebraska Easement Action Team, because ultimately, whether you want this pipeline, don't want this pipeline, or just want a fair deal, ultimately if it comes through, it's going to come down to the terms of the contract between you and Enbridge, the terms that can protect you or protect them, okay? And that's more important than price. They want to seduce you with price and give you offers and bonus and sign now, and if you don't sign up today, we're going to pull the money away. But the most important thing, if this pipeline comes through, is the fine print. And so we set up this organization called NEAT, so that landowners just like you, that were skeptical when I talked to them 10 years ago, could come together in a group that could share information, share their stories, share a legal team, and so that everyone was on the same playing field and that they were, again, bigger collectively than themselves. I've been dealing with TransCanada's lawyers for a long time. They just talked to me the other day, hey, won't you get your group to start negotiating? You know, we're willing to pay more than even what we've put out there. And they said to me, your group has a lot of value. My client, TransCanada, realizes that, and they'd like to start moving on negotiations. Well, we're not ready to do that. It's still premature. We're still fighting it legally. But don't think for 1 second that you can't all be much more powerful than you are sitting here alone. So obviously, here are some of the pipelines. We're talking about the area right here in Mellon and north and south here. And so this is an attachment that came in a letter. I don't know if all of you got this letter, or I know some of the landowners got this letter from Enbridge, where they are calling this the potential relocation corridor. They currently have a pipeline structure that's been running through where this orange line is, through the Bad River Reservation. They are no longer going to be able to transport their product from here to here, so this relocation corridor is likely why all of you are here, because you are probably somewhere on that corridor. Now, do they define how wide this is? Of course not, because then they can keep you in the dark and they have a lot of wiggle room. If some people are really anti-pipeline, they'll just shift to a neighbor that's more sympathetic. But in any event, there's approximately 40 miles that's going to be new pipeline for Enbridge if you don't do something about it. Now, again, the big picture here is that one person can do a lot, and one person connected and united with their neighbors can do even more. This is kind of the holy grail of the organization that can fight to stop or delay pipelines and or get the very best terms to protect you and your family and future generations. But it all comes back to the center, in the middle here of this wheel, the affected landowners. There I am, and here's all my clients, well not all of them, about half of them outside the courthouse a few years back over a recent victory over the pipeline there. So we need the landowners to care. I've learned a long time ago that if the lawyer cares more about a legal issue than his client, it's doomed to fail. So you've got to care, and you obviously do because you're here, and that's a great first step. And what we want to do is offer you the same type of vehicle, or to partner up and join in with the 80 feet is enough, with the WHEAT organization that's already structured if you are interested. And the benefits are that the landowners who, have day jobs, have other things to do, maybe don't want to become experts in eminent domain, pipelines, fighting pipelines, etc., can have a legal team, can have the organization, which is landowners, organized by landowners for landowners. This isn't something that, is some people that we don't know about behind the curtain somewhere. This is Mark, this is Gwen, this is Keith, this is real people that live here in Wisconsin. We also have groups that are organized. Mark's organization, 80 feet is enough, which does a lot of advocacy and teaching and reaching out to folks about why this is important to him and others. And then we have national groups that are interested in your fight, even though you don't know that. And all of this, or what we're doing, and even being here tonight, can lead to what's called earned media. If you've ever been involved in political campaigns, there's something that's earned media. When you're doing something that's interesting, or you show that there's an issue that people care about, other people talk about it, and it spreads. And it's an inexpensive way to get your word out there. So all of this in conjunction, working together with ultimately the full focus back on you to help you, is a way that an organization can be built to level the playing field against Enbridge, their billions of dollars, the laws they already have passed in their favor, all their lobbyists, and so on. But without this, I will tell you it's impossible. You've got to get on board on something like this, even if you're like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Well, then start something very similar on your own, okay? Because you can't do it without some structure. Now, I mentioned some of my clients. These are some of my clients, And I thought it would be instructive when we went to trial to show that these are real people. And again, it started out in a room just like this. And we got to be friends, and we got to really know each other. And here's their family. We've got Christmas photos. We've got people standing out in their field. These are real people that didn't want this foreign company telling them that they know how to use their land better than they do. And so this became an exhibit at trial. But initially, they were all reticent. These people are not public speakers. They didn't want to be interviewed on CNN or other places like they have been. They didn't want to be on the forefront and quoted in the New York Times and other news outlets, because when we started, they were upset and confused, and they felt hopeless. We can't really do anything. What am I going to do? I'm just one person. Well, they bought into meet. They started talking. They started realizing their strength. Some of them became activists. That's not critical. You don't have to be. You don't have to be someone that wants to speak up and get noisy about this. It helps, but you don't have to. And then eventually, they got the confidence up and realized we need to intervene in what's going on in our state. We need to become plaintiffs. We need to take action. We need to file some lawsuits, because the courtroom is the only place where we're going to even have a chance to compete here. So this is a graphic of the Nebraska pipeline, and initially there were about 3 other routes further west. And so part of what NEAT was able to do was to keep pushing the route towards where the ground is heavier, the soil's heavier, the water table isn't as high, and even though my clients ultimately don't want it, we can only start chipping away. Because if you come in right out of the gate, I'll just tell you, no pipeline over my dead body, which I completely sympathize with, that may not go very far out of the gate. And so we tried to basically step this into a position where that's the ultimate outcome. And so we had the trial on this dotted line route. That's what TransCanada wanted. It's 280 miles. And we beat them at trial, which unfortunately didn't mean we could kill the project, but now it's moved to the red. So 65% of our people, the pipeline got moved off. We're still trying to fight for the 35 up there. But I show you this to illustrate that people can make a difference. Now, is our work done yet? No, it's not. But we keep making progress, even though it's been taking 10 years to do it. So I maybe don't have to tell you these bullet points. Enbridge is not your neighbor. Now, that's not to say that everyone that works at Enbridge or gets a paycheck from Enbridge is a terrible person. I'm not suggesting that at all. But ultimately, they have one motive and one motive only, to make money. And the less money they pay you, and the less money they pay their contractors, and the less money they spend, the more money they keep. And that's the whole idea of a corporation and their business. Which, on one hand, there's nothing wrong with capitalism. I'm not against capitalism. But when you put all of the burden on individuals and foist all the burden because you've got the politicians and you've got the power and you've got the money, that's not fair. And that's what got us fired up and why we got involved in this in the first place. And Mark's right. I don't get paid to be here. This is maybe my 6th time in Wisconsin. I got my rental car, put it on my credit card, okay? And I'm not asking for any applause or anything, but this is just too important not to let you know what is going on, because I've seen so many people getting taken advantage of and bullied, and I'm frankly sick of it. Okay, so I go around the country when I can on the weekends to tell people like you these type of things. So we're not a political organization, WEAT. It's non-political. We don't care, what political party you are. It has nothing to do with it. It's about education and empowerment. The coalition of landowners, that one strong voice. And this concept is pretty important. Most of us in our lives, we're busy. We got a lot going on. Okay, we've got 1,000 other things to worry about. And then here comes this potential pipeline across our land. Well, you maybe weren't thinking about it before, but now it's coming in your backyard, so to speak, and it's like, well, what the heck? We got to do something. Well, imagine if we already were all organized and this was our 10th meeting or our 20th meeting, right? You don't build the army to defeat your enemy, or at least go toe-to-toe, after they've already invaded. It's about pre-planning and getting things in place now. That 40-mile relocation route that's going to affect you all, there's no Public Service Commission approval, okay? There's no DNR approvals. And what's exciting to me as a lawyer about all of you is that you are in a much earlier stage than when we jumped in to the fight in Nebraska. When we jumped into the fight in Nebraska, every other state had already signed off, and Nebraska was next. And 90% of the people in Nebraska had already signed the easements. So we were working with a maximum capacity of 10% of the people in our state on the route could we bring together. Whereas here, none of the prerequisites to even have this pipeline have happened. So it's very exciting to me because you have more legal tools and opportunities at your disposal because you're earlier in this process, which is absolutely critical. Now, NEAT, again, was formed to have better easement terms. And you might say, well, now hold on a second. I came here for these signs. Stop the pipeline. Why is this guy talking about easement terms? Well, the irony is that we knew if we started an organization that was fight the pipeline over my dead body pipeline, it wasn't going to get any traction in our state and that political environment at the time. It may be a little different here. But everyone can agree, even people that love the pipeline, even pipeline workers should be able to agree and say, does a landowner have a right to negotiate a fair deal if your project is going to go across their land forever and you're only going to pay them once today and you're never going to pay them in the future? It's not a lease. And they're going to have liability. They're going to pay all the property taxes, okay? Enbridge isn't going to pay any of the property taxes on the easement that goes across your land. So isn't it okay that the landowners have some power, can actually stand up for themselves? So when you're organizing around a project, yeah, of course, stop the damn pipeline. I get that. But when you're organizing, you want to spread to the masses and you want to get to people that are maybe persuadable, we decided it was very strategic to talk about the terms, something that any reasonable person can't really disagree with. And that's where we started. But the complete irony is, in 10 years, we've never talked about a single term. Because we've been so good at keeping the pipeline away, we've never had to actually have a conversation where we're talking about the easement terms. And so we actually became a vehicle of strategizing about all the other things we can do to keep the pipeline away. Mark touched on this a little bit. I don't want to belabor it, but the key point here is, again, to stay informed and stay educated in your local politics. The Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution is public use. Unless it's public use, the government can't come and take your land. That's how it's written in the Fifth Amendment. Supreme Court cases which interpret law historically have been moving that more favorably towards corporations. So rather than public use, you see public purpose or public benefit, those concepts creeping in to the court cases, which is easier to justify than a foreign project with only alleged benefit or some temporary jobs and maybe some property taxes. Because certainly none of you are going to use this pipeline. So if we were true to the Constitution, it would be impossible for this project ever to even come to pass. However, what happens on a state-by-state basis? Well, the people you elect for your state senators, they make laws. And who's in their ear? The lobbyists of the companies that have the billions of dollars to throw around. It's not you for the most part. So even though your Constitution mirrors the federal public use as the threshold requirement, your legislature has changed it to public interest for pipelines. This vague, amorphous, well, they'll pay some taxes, isn't that in the public interest? Well, guess what? I pay taxes as a homeowner. You pay taxes. Do you get any special thanks because you follow the law and pay your property taxes? It's outrageous to call that a benefit and a justification for what they're trying to do. Again, this is the statute, 3202, public interest. If the Public Service Commission, which is a body of 3 persons, finds that this proposed project is in the public interest, then they essentially rubber stamp it and the project can go forward. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but we've got a lot to cover in a short time here. So I want to make sure you understand this. Enbridge is not going to buy your land unless they're going to construct something upon it. Maybe it's a pumping station or it's something else that they're going to actually want you to buy your land for. For most of you, it's going to be this easement. They're typically a 50-foot or 80-foot permanent right-of-way, where that's the easement, where they're going to put 1 or more pipelines. They need extra space for construction, so that's more temporary. But it's not a sale, so to speak. Again, you still have the great pleasure of paying all the taxes, having liability insurance, so if their pipeline blows up and they point the finger at you that maybe you did something to cause it, that risk is 100% on you, it's not on them. Yet, they get to use your land like this forever and ever, and they're going to pay you one time. Now, that doesn't seem very fair to me, and those are things that we're trying to get changed. And also, they can come onto your land at any time they want, 24 hours of the day. I don't know if anybody here is farmers or makes any money off the land. Well, guess what? If you have your crop and it's just before harvest, but they need to get out there, they're going to come right through your fields and mow everything down. And they're going to say, but hold on, we will pay you. And they'll say that, we will pay you. But what all of that means is you will be suing us later because I want to pay you about 10% of what you actually deserve. But we're going to pay you. We will pay you. And they will. And they're counting that you won't be willing to hire a lawyer, have that headache, take them to court, or at least bluff them like you're going to, and they're going to get away yet again on the cheap, which is the whole idea of what they're doing. So if this project comes through, they're going to take this from you either by agreement, right, a voluntary easement, as if any of you would wake up in the morning and say, yeah, let's write up an easement and give it to them, or by condemnation. Okay, that's the court process where they can take it from you. Landowner rights, just briefly, obviously surface rights, that's pretty obvious. Vegetation rights, the right to improve, the right to go below your property, the air rights. You also have the right to be free of what other people try to do to you, to be free of nuisances. And so you've got a significant amount of rights that now each one of those are potentially affected during the construction period and during the life of the pipeline, which is forever, even though it's about a 50-year pipeline before they have to dig it up and re-weld it and fix it, right? But yet they're taking your land forever. What we've argued is if it's a 50-year project, you get a 50-year easement. You don't get a forever easement on a project that obviously can't last forever. So these are the very important rights that they want to take away. I want to talk briefly about this, tar sands. Now you might say, well, but hold on a second, line 5, that's light crude, right? Or something that sounds much more interesting and nice and like we want to put it on our ice cream or something. But what we're talking about here is really ultimately tar sands. And it's not oil, it's tar sands, and they dig it out with buckets like this. It's not the Beverly Hillbillies where it's shooting up in the air and it's just flowing, okay? And that's what you can do with tar sands. You can pick it up and look at it. And the reason why so many people are so against this, not just because of the property rights aspect, is because this is what's happening all over Canada. And there's a mine, the state of, I think it's Delaware now, that big in Alberta, where they're doing this. And guess where this goes? It goes to China, okay? It goes through the pipelines of the United States, ultimately to refineries, and then it gets put up for sale on the open market, typically to China as the highest bidder. And the reason why it's coming through the U.S. is because, frankly, we're the most corrupt country in the world in terms of access to our politicians. This particular pipeline, the Trans-Canada, the Keystone XL pipeline, there was a proposal to shoot it through the west, through Canada, through the provinces. But the Canadian people said, this is crazy, we don't want this. And so TransCanada said, well, we'll just ship it down through the U.S. That's going to be easy, get the route from the pipeline. We got plenty of money, and guess what? They did it. We're trying to stop them on the second one, okay? They already have one pipeline that they got in essentially through under cover of night, and no one in Nebraska even really knew about it, which is crazy. But anyway, that's what we're talking about. And this has to go through a pipeline at 1,500 psi, okay, because it's sludge. You're transporting sludge. So think of the pressure on the welds. Think of the pressure on the construction. All sorts of things that people don't want to tell you about. And real quickly, tar sands is not oil. People like to use the word oil. Well, we all need oil. Be a good American. Support us. We all need oil. What is the problem, you crazy fringe people that don't want this? But yet when it comes to paying taxes or kicking into the oil spill liability fund, they say, whoa, this is tar sands, this isn't oil. And guess what? The taxpayers can pick up the bill if there's a big spill because we haven't been kicking in our penny per barrel all these years because it's tar sands when we like it, but in our fancy marketing media and when they come to your house, it's oil. And just do your part as an American because we all need oil. So that's the duplicity in what's going on. Another thing that gets me fired up and why I want to, get in front of as many people as I can. If you've talked to them, they're very good. There's a Pipeline 101 playbook. This is typically how it goes, and they've been getting better. They hire local people in your community, if they're smart, to be the land agents. And those will be your face-to-face contacts. They'll sound like you, they might look like you, they'll have a little polo that says Enbridge, and they'll come out and they'll be very friendly. And I mean, nice people. I don't have a problem with that. But they want to hear your thoughts. Well, not really. They want to be a good neighbor, but yeah, not really. The playbook is they go to the widows first, right? Then the widowers, right? Then anyone that's kind of single and it looks like they don't have a lot of money, and then they tend to save the people that appear to be ones that may fight them a little more to the end, people with resources. That's typically the playbook. They will tell you it's the safest pipeline ever built. And to that you should say, well, it should be because it's going to be the newest pipeline ever built, so if it's less safe than the old pipelines, we got a big problem. So the fact that they're saying it'll be the safest pipeline ever built, well, first of all the other ones aren't that safe, quite frankly. And then secondly, why wouldn't it? Okay, use the latest technology if you actually mean all the things you say in your glossy advertisements and on TV. They'll take care of any construction damage. They'll say that, but they're not going to put it in writing. Okay? What they say is worthless, it's meaningless, it's feel good, and it's of zero value to you or your family. They'll pay you more if you sign up quick. Totally false. They will give you false deadlines. Well, I'll be back on Friday, and we've got to have this signed up by Friday. I mean, you understand that. We're going to put this pipeline through, and you're like, you don't know who to call, you don't know what to do, and a lot of people end up just signing it. And guess what? They don't even have the authority to put this pipeline in yet. They have no authority to do this, okay? There is no rush, there is no urgency, don't fall for that. And in fact, the opposite is true. What would you bet my clients who have held out for 10 years are getting offered versus my former clients that didn't listen to me and signed up 10 years ago? 20 times, okay? I mean, it's outrageous, the increase. And when we did the math on the original offers in Nebraska, the amount of money allocated to the land acquisition for this project, which is the easements, was 0.3% of the total amount of money of the project. So $7 billion project, 0.3% is what they allocated to land acquisition. Now, I don't know if you've ever purchased land, but if you're going to go build a hotel, the land itself is going to be about 25% or so of the cost, not 0.3%. So they have a lot more money to pay you if maybe you're of the mind, hey, if I could just get a bunch of money, my family's in a situation I actually need this. What if you're going to do that? And again, every family is specific, and you can be a part of WEEDS and still opt out at any time to do that. I want to make that clear. It's not some cult, okay? You're not handcuffed to it. And if that makes sense to you, that you're ultimately going to agree or negotiate, just make sure you get enough, okay? Because you can't get enough money to offset their terrible one-sided terms that waste responsibility and liability on you forever and ever. So no matter what you can get, it'll never be enough, but obviously try to get what you can. And they're very smart and political. They're going to donate to the community. There's going to be high school scholarships. There's going to be the free gas card giveaways. There are going to be all sorts of these things which we've already seen in Wisconsin on the other pipeline in Nebraska. And it's pay to play, right? Follow the money. That ultimately is kind of the touchstone we can always go back to, follow the money. Now, again, they say it's the most safe to try to lull you into it's the most heavily regulated. Well, all of the pipelines are constructed to the federal minimum standards. And who makes the minimum standards? Our politicians, and again, who has access to the politicians. So I show these not to scare you and, whoa, what are you doing? That's only happened in 2 different places. Well, okay, we've got a vertical pipeline, 60 billion plus for cleanup, right? And it's still not totally cleaned up. In Michigan, nearby Kalamazoo, that's actually 3 billion now, and some people are still drinking bottled water about 8 years later there. So these things do happen. And is it likely to happen to one of you if it goes through? Probably not. But it's going to happen somewhere, or at least something less significant than that. Like, oh, I don't know, a 420,000 gallon spill. This is in South Dakota, just north of the northern border of Nebraska. Pipeline ruptured, 420,000 gallons, and you know how TransCanada in this case found out their pipeline had ruptured? The landowner saw oil shooting, well, no, maybe because it was tar sands shooting about 80 feet in the air and called them. The fancy state-of-the-art spill detection equipment that they're monitoring from cubicles up in Alberta somewhere didn't even go off, okay? So that's the greatest and latest technology. That's the most recent tar sands pipeline built, and that's the kind of failure that we've seen in November 2017. There's an aerial of the land all torn up. Here's, each one of these is a trailer for the workers to be, multiple workers to be in, and then a bunch of cars, and it was like that for a long time. Here's a client of mine down in Texas. This is a view out of their kitchen window, lovely view. And the reason I show you this is because of that piece of equipment right there. On the back of that it says Michaels. It doesn't say TransCanada, it doesn't say Enbridge. Enbridge, TransCanada are not in the business of constructing pipelines. They're in the business of owning and operating pipelines and paying who? The lowest bid contractor to construct the pipeline, okay? And so now it's a layer. So what do you suppose happened here when the Michaels contractor severed this family's sewer line and didn't tell them and just covered it back up and left? Well, I call up TransCanada, well, that was Michaels, that's not us, right? Your good neighbor that's going to be there to help you fix the damage, and you can call us anytime. It's all the finger pointing, right? So after about 8 months of hassling with all these people, we finally got it resolved, and the result was they bought their house, right? They gave them enough money to buy a brand new house, they paid for all their medical bills, and then they gave them money on top of it for all the nuisance and headache. But beyond the pipeline itself and the easement and the problems that can happen with the easement, leaking, a potential explosion, is, again, this is their front yard, is this. Look at this. Risks beyond the obvious. So you've got huge and heavy equipment operating, blowing dynamite in Mark's front yard, for God's sakes. And all of a sudden, well, what's going on here? The foundation's giving way. Their house is literally cracking. And so it just goes so much further beyond the obvious. And these are all things that, guess what? Unless you're paying attention to the terms of the easement, if you get there, you're going to really get taken advantage of. Why meet? Ultimately, the legislature, your previous governor, I can't comment on the current one, and attorney general have failed. Why isn't there someone standing up for you as landowners? Everything is for TransCanada and Enbridge and these major oil pipeline companies. Who is there protecting you? I just heard whoever this woman was talking about. Okay, so a felony, really, it's going to be a felony if you walk on your own land? Is that really what this has come to? That's how preposterous this has become. Because again, Enbridge doesn't own that part of your land. Okay, you're still paying the taxes. I'm on here. There's a pipeline underneath me right here. This is my land that I'm paying taxes and I'm carrying insurance on, but I can have a felony and have my right to be on a jury, my right to vote, for God's sakes, taken away because I'm on my own land. This is how asinine the debates become, because frankly, a lot of us, including myself 10 years ago, were asleep. I didn't know, I didn't care, I was busy doing other things. But my goodness, who's going to stand up for you? Because other people that should are not, all right? So again, fine print of the contracts, that's the key. And like my clients, I've got 70 lawsuits now against TransCanada in condemnation court, and that's the last thing they want to do. And most of those people of my clients that are in court, they don't want to be in court. They were scared, they were reticent, they were confused, but they stuck with us and stuck with our theory, and they'll ultimately, if the project does go through, get paid the most and get the best deals, which, again, is that some huge victory? Well, if it's the very best you can do, it is a victory. And that's what we're going to try to do. And they don't want to go to court across Wisconsin either. Okay, real quickly on this, because I know we'll have questions and we can talk about it. This is a easement from TransCanada in Nebraska. It's very similar to the ones used all over the country. And just basic questions, like Enbridge. Do you know who the Enbridge partnership is? Do you know who the limited partner is? Do you know who actually holds the assets? So if you had to sue the limited partner who signs the deal with you, do they even have any assets if there was a major spill or a major problem?
Who are
You don't
they?
even know who you were dealing with.
Who are
in the
they?
first place. What's that?
Who are they?
Well, I don't know who Enbridge is, but through my litigation and lawsuits with TransCanada, the company right here that you'd be dealing with owns 1% of the assets of actual TransCanada. The limited partner right here is limited partner limited liability is what that means. And so the general partner holds all the assets, 99% of them, but they didn't sign a deal with you. So there's no privity of contract. You can't sue the general partner because the deal you struck was with the limited partner, okay? So, I mean, that's in like the fifth line down, major problem right out of the gate. Abandoning the pipeline in place, who here thinks that it's smart to have essentially 1,000 miles across our country, hundreds of miles across Wisconsin of abandoned fuel tanks all connected under the ground? Is that a wise idea? If you operated a gas station, you would have to get sign off from the EPA, the DEQ, and all sorts of other state authorities, pay out of your pocket to pull those tanks out or prove that they are, that there's no issues with them, that they're structurally sound and they have integrity. But not here, they can just leave it under your ground rotting for the end of time. So the big one I want to touch on is negligence. We all know, or at least have an idea what negligence is. Negligence, I'm driving my car and I look out the window at something, boom, I rear-end you. Okay, I didn't mean to do it, it wasn't intentional, it was a mistake, sure I should have been paying more attention, I'm sorry, my fault, yes you can sue me or talk to my insurance company and we'll work this out. Well, guess what? If there is any damage to the pipeline, and Enbridge can even make the argument in court that maybe it was something you did, which especially comes into place if you're farming, because I've got clients with, $400,000 combines, fully loaded grain trucks, going across their property, going across an easement. Let's say there's a crack, let's say there's a spill. You don't think they're going to come back and say, well, didn't you drive that 80,000-pound tractor trailer across that easement the other day? Well, yeah, I sure did. Well, I guess you're involved in this case. It could have been you. Maybe it was you. Even though you didn't try to shoot the pipeline or dig it up, it was negligent, it was a mistake, possibly, is their argument. And if they can hook you with that word negligence, you're now a defendant in the lawsuit. And your easements here, the historical ones, which won't affect those of you that are new on this new relocation, have that same type of stuff, or same type of language. Perpetual easement, okay, forever.
That's my easement.
Yeah, I know, you gave it to me. Yeah, I mean, these are all real things, and everything I'm telling you, I'm not making this up, it's experiences people live together. They'll pay to the grantor, prior to construction of such additional pipeline, the same consideration is as payable under the initial pipeline. Let me translate that. Back in 1968 or wherever, when they paid $1,000 to Mark's predecessor in owning this property, that, according to that sentence, was prepayment then for everything they wanted to do in the future, okay? So that's why you can't fall asleep on the language, because that person, maybe knowingly or didn't care or didn't realize it, already accepted payment for everything that would happen to the end of time. You don't get to come back and renegotiate. Now, if that line wasn't in there, you could at least try to get some money out of the deal. Let's see. Yeah, they'll bury the pipeline to a sufficient depth. What does that mean? Who's counting? Who's checking that? Who's measuring that? Let's see. Indemnify and hold harmless. Okay, but notice in here, from laying, maintaining, and renewal or repair of the pipeline. It doesn't say from operation of the pipeline. What about just the daily operation of the pipeline? It doesn't say any language. And so for $2,500, a one-time payment in 1968, the owner before Mark and Gwen here gave away every right to the end of time for their land for these pipelines. Now, do we say, hey, you dumb, you didn't know what you were doing? Of course not. I would have done the same thing, because you're not thinking about that, because you're living your lives, you're trusting these people. But now we realize all the problems that can come from this fine print language, which is why they dangle dollars in front of you, because they don't want to change this. This is what protects them and their shareholders, because they've limited and capped liability. Nothing is more unfavorable to a publicly traded company than future unknown risks. And when they can cap any risk with a crappy one-sided contract, their investors love it. They go crazy. They get $1 million bonuses. And that's what they did in '68, and that's what they're going to try to do this time around. I won't go through this, but there's that negligence word. It has to come out of the easements, in my opinion. Quickly on this slide, I've been talking about these explosions and all these things. But let's just read this for a second. This is out of the newspaper, Auburn, Nebraska. Thousands of gallons of fuel from 2 ruptured pipelines flowed downhill through a farm field and into a creek. The landowner's son was removing a hedgerow with a bulldozer on his father's land. The one spill of 6,000 barrels, 252,000 gallons, is larger than the past 70 incidents. Now, let's pause there. Why is there 70 past incidents, right? But what happened here is so many owners after the initial easement and pipeline was put in, these people didn't know it was there. The signs that are supposedly marked where it is, those had fallen down and were dilapidated. They weren't maintained. Accident, negligence, right? And so the spokesperson here from, this is Magellan Pipelines, said he didn't know if the landowner's son would face any penalty or if there was a sign there or not. Now that sounds good, well I don't really know. Guess what happens here? Do you think the pipeline company who had their pipeline shut down for a week said, yeah, don't worry about it, you've been so good to us over the years? Or did they sue him in federal court for $4.2 million? They sued him for $4.2 million. These were our clients, and after a long legal fight, we got them out of that, thankfully. But don't let this happen to you. These are real things and real people that do happen. So don't worry, they'll pay for all your damages. Complete and total nonsense. Don't ever believe that. This is an email from someone, Northeast Missouri, that was in oral negotiations of how much they were going to be paid for their destroyed crop. They were promised a price of $8 a bushel for corn, which back in those days it was around 7. It was the all-time highs. Now I know we're around 4. And it sounded good, and we felt real good about this conversation I had with the person that came out. Man, wasn't that great? And yeah, they're going to pay us $8 a bushel. Oh man, that's even more than market. Amazing. Well, guess what happened? They never paid him. They said, I don't remember having that conversation. Oh, Bob, he doesn't work here anymore. You're going to have to talk to me now. And that's the playbook. That's the game plan, okay? So what you don't know. You're here, which is great, and hopefully you're learning some things, but don't do this, because this problem is floating around even if we try to ignore it, okay? I want to go back to this, absolutely critical. If you want to do something, right, and make a difference, you're going to have to do something like the model that's worked in Nebraska, that's working here in Wisconsin on the other pipeline. And I would encourage you to join in, partner up, share information, and become a part of the organization that's already created. But in any event, very important to talk about the easement terms, even if you're stop the pipeline. Because this is something that has legs. This is something that a reasonable state senator should run with and say, my God, can't we protect our own taxpayer voters, landowners? And there's some very non-controversial concepts that could be advanced and talked about. And by us talking about all these things in Nebraska 10 years ago, even though most of my people were, I don't want this pipeline at all, by instead of saying I don't want this pipeline at all and going this route, we've delayed for a decade, and it's still not in the ground. So in any event, if you're interested, I think Mark's going to talk more about wheat, or if you want to do that or all have questions. But I think I'll maybe stop here. If we have questions about eminent domain, more in condemnation, I'll get into that, but I've kind of hit you with a fire hose of information, so I'm just going to pause for now and turn it back to Mark.
I'm just going to say a couple of things.